if you're old enough to hit the pendulum, you should be old enough to vote. Does everybody...
I'm not old enough to hit the
Can you
pendulum
explain...
at 16.
Oh, really? Well, by the way, can you just explain to the audience what a pendulum is?
It's a vape pen.
Okay, a vape pen.
Yeah.
It's a pen.
It could refer to two things. It could be marijuana in a vape pen, or it could just be a nicotine vape.
Oh, okay, yeah. Just in case you don't know, I just realized probably
Yeah,
not everyone knows what a pendulum is.
It's not multi-generational.
Okay, so the UK is now allowing 16-year-olds to vote.
Correct. And I would like to correct you. When I was 16, I was like an anarcho-capitalist, and I'm glad that I didn't have the right to vote back then. But yes, in the UK, this is a promise that the Labour government right now, the United Kingdom, the House of Commons, primarily has members of the Labour Party in there. They've promised for a long period of time that they wanted 16-year-olds to vote. And now, through Keir Starmer, the current Prime Minister, they say, yes, this is our chance. We are going to allow 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds too, because right now the voting age is 18, to participate in the democratic process.
But how does that work? They just like decree it? Like, yeah, you're allowed.
Yes. So right now they're decreeing it, but they have so many members. I think they have over 300. I wrote down the number here. 398 out of 650 members of the House of Commons. And they have some other people in like green that would probably go with them too. So they already have the numbers. So when he says this, there's not going to be another election until the year 2029. So for the time being, it looks like, yeah, this is a surefire thing. It's going to happen. Labour likes it because there was a recent poll that came out, and it showed that like over 30% of people in that age group, 16 to 17, their top choice for who they would support in the next election is Labour.
Oh, come on, obviously.
Yeah.
Young people always go liberal. That's
and then
obvious.
Second to that, actually, surprisingly, was Reform, Nigel Farage's party. So we have a clip. It's Nigel Farage's reaction to this decision by the Labour government. Let's take a look.
So the government today have announced seismic government election reforms. This means votes will be extended to 16 and 17-year-olds. Now, in the past, I've always said I don't support this because I don't think you should be able to vote in an election if you can't stand as a candidate. And I don't think we should have 16-year-olds in Parliament. But the problem with this is not only do half of youngsters not want the vote, but they have to stay at school now until they're 18. And we know, and I get emails every week from bias in schools. This week, a 12-year-old was sent home for turning up at a party in a Union Jack dress. The educational establishment is full of left-wing prejudice, is full of anti-reform bias. And frankly, if 16 to 18-year-olds at school are going to be able to vote, we're going to have to make sure that our education system is teaching kids to make their own minds up and not indoctrinating them.
Yeah, so it's a good point, right? If you can't actually stand in Parliament, you have to be 18 over there, meaning to be elected. Why should you have the right to vote? Now, we had this kind of crisis before where we lowered the voting age in our country in the 70s, 26th Amendment, right? But that was kind of in the time of the Vietnam War, when people were like, if you're old enough to fight, you should be old enough to vote. So we saw that, we got it lowered from, higher. Where we're now, anyone can vote at 18. I actually didn't get to vote at 18 for the president because I was born in the wrong year. I was born in 2000. So I had to wait an extra 2 years so that I could vote for the president.
I don't think people should be allowed to vote under the age of 30.
This is
not a controversial take. Many people also believe that you should have property.
Here's my take.
But we have a history of this country.
Here's my
suffrage history.
Forget about age altogether.
Oh no.
You should only be able to vote if you pay taxes. If you're working 14 years old on a work permit, you're paying taxes.
Well, how will our billionaires vote?
Well, that's what I was going to say. If you're a billionaire, you don't pay taxes, you're not going to vote. No voting for you. So you got to pay taxes.
The UK isn't the only country now that has 16-year-olds voting. We also have Austria, beautiful country, Malta, another one, Brazil. In Greece, you can vote at 17. In Germany and Belgium, you can vote at 16 for members of the European Parliament, but you can't vote in the federal elections. And, my personal favorite, in Vatican City, you can only vote if you're below the age of 80.
Oh, that's true, right?
Yeah, which is kind of a good thing there. I like what they have going.
Okay, so can I give okay? I obviously understand the rationale for it because a 16-year-old I mean, if I can like be sympathetic to that idea, it's like they have so much of their lives still to go, and they should be able to kind of like dictate which way, or at least vote in which way the country goes, because, you know, whether it's a war or the climate or whatever it is, like they have a stake for their future. So I understand that part. However, even with like what Nigel Farage was doing, like I guess that's the way you can sort of argue it, but like the truth is that young people are extremely susceptible to propaganda. Like I remember when I was 18, I got to vote for the first time for the president. I didn't know anything about anything. I was like any other high school kid. I had no interest in politics. I worked at a restaurant. The black waiter I worked with told me Barack Obama is a cool guy, and I voted for Barack Obama because he was a cool black guy. That's it. That was the extent of my political understanding. You know?
Well, I think the Labour government would appreciate voters like you.
Thank you for your service, Mr. Roman. Now back to
they would love that. So this is, again, you teased in the intro that there is a group of people in the U.S. that think we should lower it even further, maybe to 16. There was actually, USA Today had an opinion piece, which I learned about this issue by seeing that piece. It was, want to save American democracy? Let teens vote. So there's a group, and they actually interviewed, they had some clips and stuff and a little bit of text from American Psychological Association. They were talking about how when you vote when you're younger, it can form a habit. When you're at home and you're 16 and there's stability, you know, your parents can take you to the polling site, you can form a habit. When you turn 18, you're kind of off to college and things change for you, and you might not be able to, you know, go and vote back home, and then you'd have to worry about mailing. So the psychology, but again, this is the same group of people who tell us that our brains aren't fully developed at that age.
Well, they're not.
Yeah, so what are you talking about?
You can use the same argument if you talk about neuroplasticity, though. The brain is not like once it forms, it's there forever, right? We're constantly changing. Every single day, your brain is rewiring itself, right? Every time you learn something, okay? So I think on the brain development front, first of all, there are only some studies that kind of abide by this like 25-year benchmark for full brain development. There are plenty of others that also say that's not an ironclad thing. There are others that say it's different for men versus women. They say that the rough halfway point for female brain development for girls is like 11 versus, you know, for teenage boys, it's not until 15. When you get to be an adult, they say that female brain develops roughly 22 years old versus males take 30 years, right? So there's a ton of arguments on this, and you can kind of go either way. On the one hand, okay, just because your brain is not fully developed, does that mean, you know, just because you will perhaps make better choices later or be able to make better choices later, should you be not allowed to make them now, right? On the other hand, do you want to look back on your life and say, well, I made these choices when I perhaps knew better later? Like, it's a multifaceted argument.
Yeah, I don't think my brain's fully developed yet. I couldn't comprehend most. But I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say this. So we were talking also about the U.S. There was a poll that I kind of thought was very interesting. It was a Cato YouGov poll, came out in March, and it said 62% of Americans aged 18 to 29 say they hold a favorable view of socialism. 34% say they have a favorable view of communism. I mention that because in our own country, when it comes to youth, we're seeing a lot of younger people show up at the ballot box, we saw in New York City just with Zoran Mamdani, and support socialist candidates. And we're seeing youth participate more in the democratic process.
So what you're saying is that an undeveloped brain is one of the factors.
I'm not saying that. I'm listing facts.
I mean, even like the whole brain debate, it's like, it's not, as just an adult in the room, you have to look at this and say, like, look, this 16-year-old kid, why wouldn't he support socialism? That's all the kid has known his whole life.
Yes.
A kid lives in a socialist paradise. They don't pay for anything. Everything is free.
Well, that's my argument with the taxes, actually, is that when you're a kid, your experience, you are living like the socialist paradise. You're being provided everything you need. Government provides your school. Your schedule's set for you. Everything else is dictated for you. The imaginary world you live in is something provided to you, for the most kids at least, externally. And so until you start participating in the actual like free market, until you start learning how the world actually works, that's your perception of things. And of course, you know, what are you going to vote for if your entire life is handouts, you're going to vote for more handouts.
Well, you know
obviously.
what's very interesting? In that same poll that I mentioned earlier, not the socialism one, but the who would you support if you have the right to vote in the UK, it's correct that Labour had many voters, a huge percentage of the 16-year-old. But 1 year later, at 17, they fell by half, and more votes went to Reform. So it's just kind of interesting.
I
Churchill
have seen
quote.
numbers. Trump somehow actually is winning the younger vote.
Yeah.
But I think it's because he's very memeable, actually.
Well, that gets to the point. It shouldn't be about oh wow, this is gonna backfire on the Tories. But okay, but once this specific political situation passes, 40 years from now, when you still have 16-year-olds voting, it's it doesn't matter what the left or the right was talking about 40 years in the past.
It could just be a temporary give us some more votes scheme.
You know what you're also going to watch?
It could be.
You're going to watch political advertising become so
on
cringy.
Cartoon Network,
it's going to be the cringiest advertising ever because they're going to. It's going to be a bunch of old people trying to market
dances,
to 16-year-olds.
Doing dances on TikTok.
Oh, I'm not ready.
You
for
already
this.
see that.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, Pokemon go to the polls.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, I'm not ready for it. I can't handle
I don't know
this.
how much more time you went on this segment, but I was at an event in New York City last week, or maybe a little earlier than that, and I interviewed the former Lieutenant Governor of New York, and we were talking
How
about.
old is
She.
Oh.
She's an older woman, very experienced, and Betsy McCoy. And I asked her about young people coming out to vote for Zoran and everything. She gave me her opinion about this and what we're going to see in New York in the general election. And we have that clip right here.
One of the important demographics that Zoran Mamdani mobilized was the youth. He was able to get a lot of Gen Z millennials out to vote, but you're not betting on them coming out for the general election. Why is that?
Because they're fickle voters. They're kissing goodbye voters. They seldom turn out 2 elections in a row.
And
Just looking at the facts.
the facts being that previous elections.
Yeah, very undependable.
Do you think it's fair to say that in the previous elections we didn't have a Zoran Mamdani? We didn't have someone that resonated with you?
That's true. I cannot predict for sure what's going to happen in this election. It's really not my job. I just feel that a city is healthier when everybody turns out to vote.
So this was actually at an event. The subtitle was how to stop Zoran. And it wasn't like they were campaigning for other candidates, but they were just talking mathematically, hypothetically, how this could happen. And she basically said, you need to have 50% turnout, and they might get it from the youth. The problem is they would need 50% turnout of older people in order to counteract that. And the claim that she made that young people, they're historically very fickle and they don't come out, if they're coming out to the tune of almost, 1 million voters participating in the Democratic primary, I think you can expect more people to come in the general election.
All right, I know exactly what you're thinking. That was a great clip you just watched. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to follow and also check out either these videos or maybe they're on this side. I don't know which side they're on, but we set it up. So these are the videos that YouTube is suggesting to you as the best ones that you'll probably like the most. So check them out, this side, and until next time.